Welcome to Wine and Real Estate, the podcast where we drink wine, we have fun, and we learn about real estate investing. Real estate investing is so much more than just buying buildings. It's about building relationships, building your dreams, building your dream lifestyle, customizing your life. What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? It's much more than money. It's more than getting rich. It's a different type of wealth. It's the wealth of time, the wealth of freedom. And now let's get to the wine and the real estate.
Hi, I'm Dahlia, founder of Streetwise Mortgages, and in the last episode we started talking about creative financing, where I shared with you the private money strategy. On today's episode, I will share with you my tips on joint ventures, another creative money strategy to grow your portfolio. But first, let's start with what a joint venture is. Joint venture partners are other parties who are interested in investing in real estate with you. They may contribute funds or other skills that complement yours and can improve the performance of the investment or help obtain better financing overall for the venture, which you may not be able to obtain on your own. Many seasoned investors seek joint venture partners who can contribute funds but do not have the time or knowledge to invest in real estate. This strategy can be beneficial as it helps you grow your real estate portfolio to a scale that you may not be able to reach on your own once you have exhausted your own capital and resources. With such a setup, you and your joint venture partners would determine how you can split the returns and manage the risks through a legal agreement referred to as the joint venture agreement, which can be put together with the help of a seasoned lawyer. If you're considering a joint venture strategy, it is really important that you seek qualified partners before you start shopping for properties. Firstly, you need to ensure that their goals align with yours. And secondly, that you have had them review the joint venture agreement before you have a deal at hand, and that they've reviewed it with their lawyer, you've ironed out all questions, and most importantly, everyone understands the worst case scenarios, which include death, divorce, bankruptcy, and disputes. In terms of financing, if your joint venture partner is responsible for the down payment and closing costs, then he or she must qualify for the mortgage and be on title as well as on the purchase and sales agreement. It is crucial that your joint venture partner goes through the mortgage pre-qualification process before investing with you. This way, you avoid mortgage surprises in the midst of a deal. If you're looking to expand your portfolio using joint venture partners, our team at Streetwise Mortgages offers special solutions and services for this particular strategy, including 1. Providing you with a complimentary joint venture financing binder to share with your JVs to help them get ready from a financing standpoint. 2. Helping pre-position your joint venture partners from a financing point of view to acquire multiple properties and to ensure that they are mortgage ready, so your transaction closes fast and smoothly when the time comes. And finally, advising you both on how to best structure the deals to maximize your ability to do more and more deals together. And most importantly, to ensure that you continue to scale personally. When joint ventures are structured incorrectly from a financing standpoint, they can hinder your personal ability to qualify for future financing. To discuss your joint venture growth plans, or if you need guidance on how to best structure your joint venture deals from a financing standpoint, email us at info@streetwisemortgages.com. Cheers to your success.
Hello, everyone. So I always like seeing this intro with all my past guests. It's like, wow, I've done a lot in the past almost 2 years now, and it's been amazing. So welcome, Eddie. So Mr. Eddie Kamps, all the way from beautiful Calgary, Alberta. So I'm very excited to have you on. We have spoken on other podcasts, but today is a bit different. So sometimes I'm drinking wine, but not today, I guess. But I'd love to find out more about who is Eddie Kamps and how do you fit into the world of real estate and what's happening in Calgary. I have lots of questions for you.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Thank you. So yeah, could you give us some background on your story? Like how did you get involved in real estate at all? Like it doesn't usually happens just like that. Usually there's some sort of element that happened or some sort of event.
Yeah, absolutely. So my interest in real estate essentially started in college. I actually went to military school in Ontario, and I found myself in third and fourth year as I was about to become an adult, looking at MLS listings for Alberta, various parts of the country, and thereafter. I couldn't really do very much with real estate just due to my duties as an active Army officer. But after I released from the military in 2013, that's when my love of it really started to blossom. So I moved down to Calgary. I became a development engineer. That's where my education is, and that's what I do primarily for a living now. And what I did is after I graduated from business school, I just really focused on real estate investing. I'm a very research and facts oriented person. So I researched the Calgary market and I just started building up my portfolio. The other thing that I did was I got my real estate license. So I'm a licensed realtor in the province of Alberta, which has really accelerated and helped my investing journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you get to see deals before others do and hear about all kinds of opportunities. And I really enjoy your your account. You do share some really interesting insights. Can you share your Instagram handle for our listeners?
Yes, it's my last name, Kamps, Kamps. It's just Kamps Realty.
Kamps Realty, yeah. So yeah, you share these guides and different things, which I find very interesting. That's why I wanted to reach out to you and get to know you more as well, and learn where all these stats come from, and how you get all this knowledge and data as well. So are you originally from Ontario then, and you moved to Alberta, or did you go back to Alberta?
I'm originally from British Columbia, the lower mainland. I grew up in Surrey, actually. I spent the first 17 years of my life there, and then I wanted to break out, do something new. So I went to a university in Ottawa for a year before joining the Army. I did 4 years at military school, and the rest of my time is spent primarily in Alberta. So I have family in Alberta. I love Alberta. I don't think I could ever leave, but this is where I call home.
Very cool. And it sounds like you guys have quite nice weather. A lot of people, when I say Calgary, they're like, oh, you're going to suffer if you go there in February. But I heard it's actually like 10 degrees, 0, 12. I mean, it varies, but tends to be warmer than what we experience in Eastern Ontario, where I am.
It is. One of the key differences between Alberta and Ontario weather is the temperature is roughly the same. It's comparable, but it's a lot more humid in Ontario just due to the proximity to the lakes, and even Calgary is a lot different than Edmonton because of Chinooks, the air coming off the mountains. So Edmonton, it's not exactly like this, but Edmonton, starting in November and ending in February or March, it drops down to -10, -15, -20 degrees. Whereas in Calgary, we get these winds coming off the mountain. So on a day like today, it's 8 to 10 degrees, which is really refreshing.
Wow. And today, just to share, we're February 9th. So 8 to 10. Yeah, we're far from that in Ottawa. I'm at minus 1. Not too bad. This is actually a warm February day. I think Ottawa's weather is more like Edmonton. So for lifestyle, I've heard a lot. Calgary is a lifestyle city because you're close to the mountains. So what's good about Calgary other than investments? If you were to move there and move your family, what do you enjoy about your city?
There are a lot of things to like about Calgary. I actually, one of the things that I really enjoy about Calgary is the size of it. It's not a giant city like Toronto or Vancouver, where you can get some of those issues with larger cities like traffic and some crime areas. But it has, it's big enough that it has a lot of the amenities of a larger city. Some of the other things that I really do enjoy about Calgary, other than the weather, we have an international airport with lots of destinations, and we are about an hour from the mountains, which is extremely popular at work and with my clients. We have world-class skiing an hour away. We have Banff National Park, Canada's first national park, in very close proximity. And I think one of the most underrated aspects of Calgary that isn't really talked about is to go east to Drumheller. We have the Badlands. We have the Tyrrell Dinosaur Museum, world class. So there's a lot of interesting topography and things to do around here.
Very cool. I can't wait to discover Calgary a bit. I am visiting for the first time, other than a layover about 10 years ago. And in a few weeks, I will be visiting your beautiful city. So, Drumheller, I'm curious, do you know anything at all about the market? Because I have looked at some listings. Is that an interesting place to invest, or is that too remote other than dinosaurs? People don't go there, or?
I think you'll start to see a bit of flight from Calgary because it's February 9th, so about 5 weeks ago, the market went from coming down off of our highs from 2021, that same market activity that we saw in different parts of Canada. We're coming down off that high, but then we just hit this giant peak where it seems like everybody and their dog from Ontario is coming here looking for detached homes. So we've seen the type of market activity in Ontario that we have seen in Ontario. So I think we'll see some flights of capital to Okotoks, Strathmore, and even Drumheller. I quite enjoy the town. It gets very hot there in the summer. You have the Red Deer River running through there, and there are tons of attractions. Not just the Dinosaur Museum, but the Hoodoo, the coal mine. So lots of things to do there.
Very cool. So yeah, it sounds like your province is will be gentrifying. Alberta used to be more expensive than Ontario. I remember like about a dozen years ago, Calgary was more expensive than Ottawa, where I live. And now Ottawa is really like exploded, and the GTA, of course, we don't even need to mention that. But I can totally see why Ontarians are moving to Alberta for the lifestyle, first of all. There's all kinds of things to do, nice airport as well. Well, two of them, like Edmonton also has an international airport, I think. And yeah, world-class facilities. No provincial sales tax. That I love. That is huge. And even personal income tax is much lower than what we experience here. I think it's great, and tons of land. So you guys are able to build quite far because it's very flat. Here we don't have mountains or anything like that, but it's not quite as flat. And there's a lot more regulation with construction. I know there's some densification happening in Calgary and Edmonton, but not to the extent we've seen here, where they're tearing down houses and then there's like an 80-story building going up next door to bungalows. So it's getting a little bit out of hand, I find. So where are the hot spots in Calgary for investors?
It's really come down to the segments. So first of all, the hottest segment tends to be the least dense. So your detached properties are by far the hottest sector or the hottest segment. And then it goes down after that to semi-detached, row, townhouse. And then our condo market is still a bit in a buyer's market, bordering on balanced. But where I see the hottest activity is in that detached sector, in fairly close proximity to downtown and even the outer suburbs. So for example, there's a community that's quite close to where I live personally called Copperfield, perfectly nice community. A detached house that was listed for about $500,000, sold unconditionally for $645,000. So we're seeing that type of market activity, primarily in detached, and another spin or wrinkle to that is basement suites. That is being gobbled up by buyers as soon as they come on the market.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, let's say you're Ontarian or from somewhere else and you're moving and the cost of living is already lower, but if you can have a basement suite, now you're house hacking, you're living for very, very cheap compared to Ontario, where like what you mentioned, 645, I could hardly get a townhouse for that here in Ottawa. So, and the GTA, you'd get a garage maybe at that price. So the opportunities are there. I mean, you've got that buying power, which is amazing. And you can become an investor. I know many of my listeners are maybe newer investors or thinking about investing. So I always talk about house hacking. Is this something that you do, Eddie, like with your own house, or you've done in the past, or?
I did it about 10 years ago when I was actually living in Fredericton. I had a few people living in my basement. I rented out the rooms. Um, that was my first and only house hacking experience. Um, as I became a little bit more mature in my investing journey, and frankly, as my family expanded, I now have 3 kids. My wife insisted upon having a house all to
Yeah.
ourselves. But if you are, a younger person in Ontario or a high cost of living market, you want to get ahead, then moving to a lower cost of living area with a suited property would be a very enticing move.
That's it. But with kids, I agree with you. My wife and I, we had plans of house hacking, and then I heard kind of the noise the kids were making. I'm like, yeah, if anybody lived underneath us, they would go insane and kill us. There would be no house hacking happening. So yeah, it's not a good deal for sure. So now you're also a realtor part-time. How does that work? Because that's not something we hear often here where I am, because realtors usually, well, they might be starting to go part-time here because there's no listings, which you will experience soon as well. But how do you do that part-time, juggle that full-time job, your family? That's a lot to handle.
Frankly, it can be very difficult. January was an extremely busy month, primarily with buyers. I always caution my buyers that my availability is quite limited during the day from 8 to 4, just due to the nature of my work. I do have some flexibility, but a lot of my activity occurs, in the evenings, on weekends. And my buyers tend to be of a more professional nature as well, so my schedule tends to sync with theirs.
Perfect.
But my wife knows why I do it, and I manage my schedule appropriately.
Does she, so she is supportive of your investing and also being a realtor as well? And
She's a very understanding woman. Sometimes she doesn't like it how much I'm away from the house. However, I've started to lean much more heavily on other agents in my office, so we tend to share the workload a little bit better.
very cool. Yeah, that's smart, building kind of teams. And yeah, if they're available during the day and you're available evenings, there's ways to go around it. So that's great. What would you recommend? So this scenario, a lot of people have about $500,000 for mortgages, half like 500, 600,000 plus some money to buy something. Where could such an investor look for opportunities? Because you mentioned single homes. We're looking more at 650 with bidding wars and things. So are there areas where 500,000 will buy you something that could cash flow?
It's getting more difficult now, frankly. If I were to speak to somebody about that before Christmas, then what my standard line would be is a detached suited property along the future green line, the new LRT line that has been approved in Calgary. However, with the changing market, I'm not saying that is not possible, but it's becoming fewer and far between. So if somebody were to enter the market right now and that number one option is off the table, then what I would do is I would look to other market segments where that fits your budget and can still deliver you some returns. So there are still opportunities along the green line. You may have to move into different neighborhoods, or even go down to a semi-detached or a townhouse along it. And those right now are about cash even. You may find some that cash flow for a little bit more, but with the recent trends in the market, the pool of investable properties has frankly shrunk.
So what do you think about smaller? You've mentioned some cities. Is Red Deer a good spot to look at as well, or is that too far for city, like people? Do people commute, or since you have these nice highways that are not super busy, maybe it's an opportunity to drive a bit further and have a nicer house or rent or.
I really like Red Deer as a city. My wife is from there, actually, and I think it's the second or third wrong, the third or fourth largest city in Alberta. It tends to follow the Alberta market quite closely, whereas Lethbridge is the economy of Lethbridge is more tied to the agricultural sector. Both are too far from Calgary to reasonably commute. So if
Okay.
you are looking for a more affordable property within the Calgary area, then I would recommend cities and towns like Okotoks, Strathmore, Airdrie, which is just to the north, and even Cochrane.
Okay, very cool. So on the outskirts, it is doable, and also you mentioned earlier condos. So I know condos for investors sometimes it's not the best thing, but you said we're getting to a buyer's. Well, you're still a buyer's market, maybe almost balanced. Do you think there's opportunities there for people to maybe flip condos, like find some older condos, like clean them up and sell, or is that we're not there yet?
I don't think we're quite there yet. That could be a possibility. There are some older buildings in an area called the Beltline, which is arguably Calgary's densest residential sector. It's just south of downtown. If people are unfamiliar with Calgary, if you've ever heard of the Red Mile, where Flames fans party and when we make the playoffs, that's the area that we're talking about. I'm normally a bit bearish on condos for reasons that your viewers would be familiar with. The higher condo fees means it's more difficult to cash flow. But if you were to look at something like an Airbnb, particularly as COVID is hopefully ending, you can actually make a very cogent case for investing in a condo in Calgary for those reasons, and the fact that there is a massive amount of investment that's going to be spent in the Stampede grounds just southeast of downtown.
Okay.
The reconstruction of the BMO Center, the Flames Arena will be back on track, hopefully. So I would investigate that.
Okay, very interesting. So some condo boards do allow Airbnb, and so does the city. Okay.
Yeah, some buildings do, some buildings don't. If you want to
Yeah.
run an Airbnb in Calgary, then it has to be the suite has to be registered with the city.
Okay, but it is doable. Wow. That's a rarity for most markets where I've invested. You're just not allowed unless it's your principal residence. And even that, they're talking about removing that. So we'll see where that goes. So, Eddie, 2022 is already fairly advanced. We're already into our second month, almost halfway. What are you up to in 2022? What are your plans and goals?
So, in terms of real estate, I would, I've recapitalized. I have some money to put into the market. I'm just taking a wait and see approach as to what particular segment. There's historically low inventory here, so there aren't a ton of opportunities at the moment. So I'm looking at expanding my portfolio into several key areas that I've identified. And on the personal side, frankly, when I was a younger man, I went up to the Yukon actually. The Yukon Territory. So I'm going to take the wife and kids on an 8-day rafting canoe trip on the Yukon River and spend about 2.5 weeks in Canada's north.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And I've seen pictures. It's just gorgeous. So that's probably like a summer trip, July maybe, or
Yeah, I'm planning on it the first 2 weeks of August.
okay.
It was recommended to me by a friend a long time ago, and he said it's pristine. It's Canada's undiscovered, a place that's not really talked about. I fell in love with it while I was there. I love the Yukon, and I want to share that with my family.
Very nice. And so yeah, canoeing, rafting, like what other activities are there? And can you drive there or do you have to fly there or what's the process to get to Yukon?
We are hopping in the van, my wife's van. I call it the Spruce Moose. Um, so we're going to go up there with one of her friends. It's about realistically about 3 days to drive from Calgary up to Whitehorse.
Wow.
Um, when we get there, it's 8 days on the river, and then we're going to be spending the balance of our 2 weeks. One in Dawson City, which I absolutely love. It looks like an old frontier town. And then also spending time at a place called Tombstone Territorial Park. And this place, when I went there, the grass was literally bright red, bright orange, bright yellow. It was such an amazing landscape. And I can't wait to go back. I love it.
Very cool. Yeah, I've seen pictures of nature. It's very different. There's plants you don't see in southern Canada, I guess you could call us. So what's the most interesting things you've seen there? Like you've mentioned some green and red and orange grass. What other elements like are fun in Yukon that you would also recommend?
There are two other interesting aspects of it, and I'm not doing the place enough credit. The first is we'll be going there in late July, early August, so the days are extremely long, 21
That's right.
hours.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really cool. And then the second part is all of the animals. I must have seen dozens of bears, countless deer. It's absolutely stunning how much wildlife is there. And the last thing I'll say is I really love the people. They're very hardy. They're extremely nice, give you the shirts off their back. It's one of the most underrated places I've ever been.
Wow, that's really interesting. And as an investor, do you think you'll be maybe looking and seeing if there's a cottage or a cabin or something you could get there to go? Or is this just kind of a one-off trip for now?
It's a one-off trip. I always have my eyes on real estate, so I always tend to look at things like that. But if I were to ever invest money in there, it won't be for a few years. I have some opportunities that I want to capitalize closer to home. So that's where my focus will be.
Okay, great. And so most of your investing is local. So you invest for the most part in Calgary and area. Are you thinking at all of expanding out of province, out of country, or is that not something you're looking at?
Most of my investments are in Calgary. I do look at Edmonton. I really do like that market for several reasons. I do own a multifamily property in Prince George, BC, of all places. However, for me right now, I know that there's concentration risk by putting all of your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah.
But there are lots of opportunities in Calgary that I want to capitalize on. I've done a lot of research into it. I feel very confident in my strategy and my plan. So over the next few years, Calgary is going to be the focus, but who knows after that?
Yeah, I think you're right. For at least 5 years, Calgary is the it city. We've seen Toronto and Ontario blow up for a lot of years now. And then Eastern Canada, so the Maritimes have gone up quite a bit. And then the overlooked area is Alberta, Saskatchewan. Manitoba did see quite a bit of increase as well. And I think Alberta has like all the right elements, all kinds of employment, good strategies to become the next it province. It was as well for a good while. Alberta was quite high, and then you had some economic issues, but it's everywhere. And a lot of Ontarians forget Ontario in the 90s was not doing well at all. It was really bad. I came out of college in 2001 and unemployment was very high. You had to fight for jobs, and now there's like 5 jobs for every person. So how is employment in Calgary as well? Is that a concern or?
It's rebounding. So Calgary's unemployment rate is higher than Alberta's, and Alberta's is higher than the national average. That was primarily due to the fact that in 2014, there's a steady decrease in oil prices.
Yeah.
And that continued well into that decade, to the point where with COVID, the price of a barrel of oil actually went negative for a day.
Oh my goodness. That's when it hit 56 cents here. I took a picture.
Oh, it was insane. It was negative $33 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate.
Wow.
However, right now, it's very difficult to be profitable when you're paying somebody to take your oil.
You're
But
giving it
right
away.
now, but right now, with all of the supply constraints, with the fact that very little capital has been put into renewing these oil plays and increasing production, a barrel of oil right now goes for about $93, which a lot of major oil companies in Calgary have reported their earnings, and the sector is as profitable as it has ever been.
Very good. And I know the city has, because of that, diversified a lot. So if this dips again, I don't think you'll be hit as hard, because I heard there's a lot more happening. Amazon, Google, I think, is setting up or has set up offices, and you have education and all kinds of people that, like, the national immigration as well, like people coming from other provinces. I don't know what the word is, but I think that's going to keep your city safer as well, because people will bring their jobs. I know quite a few people have sold their houses here and are moving to Alberta, but keeping their jobs as well. So they don't even need employment. They come for the lifestyle.
And like our tech sector is clearly not as big as Toronto's, but it is growing and it's getting a lot more attention. Infosys, Neo Financial, Benevity, ShareWorks was bought out by Morgan Stanley. I think a lot of international investors and companies are recognizing what Calgary has to offer. And I think with the oil prices as well, it'll provide a floor if there's any type of market correction. There's a lot to like about Calgary. And furthermore, with the expansion to the airport, there's a discussion of having a train going from the airport through downtown west to Banff. I think that'll really help our tourism sector out as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot to like about what's going on here.
That's amazing. So thank you so much, Eddie, for sharing a bit about your knowledge. What's the best way for our listeners to get a hold of you if they want to learn about where to invest, and where would you invest in Calgary area?
I'd say two things. One, follow me on Instagram, again, at Kamps Realty, Kamps Realty. You can message me on there, or simply just email me. It's my first name, Eddie, Eddie, at kampsrealty.ca. I don't maintain a huge social media presence that frankly takes away from research. So those are the two best ways to get a hold of me.
No, very good. And there you squeezed in a nice little recommendation that's really smart. Focus. So you're focusing on Instagram. Perfect. Become a master of Instagram. I'm very guilty of that, the shiny penny syndrome. I kind of scatter everywhere, but if you're focused, you have better results, and you're easier to get a hold of as well. It's one way and that's it. So thank you. This was quite enlightening. I look forward to hearing more from you in the future, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
You too, sir. Thank you so much.